This week's episode of Changemakers and Power Players is personal because it's about motherhood. I caught up with Reshma Saujani, the founder of philanthropic organization Moms First, about her new documentary called No Country for Mothers, which premieres on June 15th. The film connects the dots about the economic arguments for programs that help parents, such as universal childcare and paid family leave. The Girls Who Code nonprofit founder also shared her tips on using AI. Reshma Saujani is in the Changemakers and Power Players spotlight. Reshma, thank you so much for talking to me for Changemakers and Power Players. I've been so grateful to know you over the years. First, when you were doing Girls Who Code, I remember your book, Brave Not Perfect. And now to see you lead this movement, Moms First, has been awesome for me as a mom myself. You have this new movie coming out, and I watched the opening. I haven't seen the whole thing yet, but I watched the opening, and it made me incredibly emotional because it really raises all these questions about what's wrong in this country when it comes to parenting and childcare.
Yeah.
So thank you for being here. Tell us, what is this movie that you have coming out?
So this movie, it's called No Country for Mothers, and it's an investigation into the lies that we have told throughout American history to divide and distract mothers, from getting the things that we need. And here's the thing, motherhood in America is impossible by design. It's a feature, not a bug. And I feel like moms have been getting conned since the ink dried on the Constitution. And what do I mean by that?
What do you mean? Yeah, what do you mean by that?
People are like, well, what do you mean by that? I mean, why is the workday end at 6 and school pickup is at 3:30? Why do we pay more for our childcare than our mortgage? Why do most women go back to work 2 weeks after having a baby, right? And we present these as our personal failures, when in fact they're structural. And we're so divided that we don't come together to fix them. And that's what I want this movie to fix.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that made me emotional watching the opening of the film is this idea that moms feel that we are always failing and we can't get it right and we can't be everywhere at the same time, and just this feeling of being pulled in different directions.
Yeah.
And it seems like what you're saying is we shouldn't be putting that on ourselves. We should be trying to figure out how to change the system.
And that that's intentional that you feel that way.
What do you mean intentional by whom? I don't think,
Yes. Oh, so I'm about to tell you. I mean, that's the culture wars in America. So basically, and this is what this film looks into, it's from the beginning of time, we've created these dichotomies, because the worst thing that I can tell you, Julia, is that you're a bad mom, right? That's literally the worst thing I can say to you. So think about what's the current culture war? The current culture war in America is trad wife, first girl boss. Right? And I have traveled the country, and I have yet to meet a woman who wants to spend her time milking a cow, right? Or hustling so hard that she never sees her kids. Most people in America can't afford to be one. So you and I and women like us spend all of our time defending our choices in the comment section in Instagram because we don't want to feel like we're a bad mom or a bad worker. And that is a distraction that prevents us from banding together and fixing childcare or passing paid leave. And so to me, it's a con. It's a con by politicians, right, to win elections. It's a con by influencers to sell books. It's a con by technology companies, right, who make their revenue on ad sales. And so they get us to rage bait. So they make money off of our clicks. All of it, quite frankly, is a trick to make us feel so insecure about our own choices, so that we spend our time fighting each other rather than breaking down the system.
But I guess the thing is that I wonder is, look, I have a job I love. I love my job. I also love spending time with kids. I love baking cookies, and I wouldn't mind milking a cow every once in a while. But I think, to me, the question I have is this idea that this is an intentional system to repress women or to make women feel bad. It feels like this is just a system that our childcare and our I guess it's how could we make a difference so people could have longer paid leave and all of these things?
Yeah.
I wonder if it's coming down from above or just reflects centuries of what's been part of the
God,
institution here.
I love this conversation. No, here's the thing. I think it's intentional. You want to know why, Julia? Because why am I given a binary? Like what you and I want is something in between, right? I want to drop my kid off to school, work my butt off on like this documentary and talk to you and 6 other interviews that I'm about to have. And I too am going to bake cookies tonight. But you know what? I can do that because I am my own entrepreneur. I built my own company. Every mom who works for me can do that. So what pisses me off about like the current conversation that you see kind of in the girl boss space is that it has to be a certain way, that the only way that you get ahead is if you're constantly head down in the office every minute, and that it is somehow you should have a prize for only spending 3 hours with your child. That's just not the only way for you to be successful. And so to me, instead of defending the shitty choices that we have, why don't we create something new? Right? Like, why don't we actually create a workplace that has flexibility? Why don't we actually pass childcare like they have in Norway and Canada and South Korea and quite frankly, everywhere else? But why I say it's intentional is like, it's distinctly American and we know what we have to do to change it, but we refuse to do it. Why? Like, that's the question.
Okay, so I have so many questions here, including wanting you to explain what we have to do to change the system. But let's go back to what is this movie? What is the story that it tells? When is it coming out, and why do you have so many producers on?
So it's coming out June 15th. And then we like to say it's a documentary for moms by moms. We have 2,500 producers.
Which is
We
unheard
broke
of.
the world record. Yeah, it's unheard
Yeah.
of. We have thousands of moms who've signed up to do a screening. I mean, you go on our website, it's fun. It's like Idaho, like Minnesota, like Kansas. I'm like, who are these moms? But like people, like I got the same reaction that you shared with me. It's like, I'm watching this, I'm crying, I feel seen. Like people are like, oh my God, you're telling my story. And that means I'm not broken, that like the system is broken. It's coming out on June 15th. We're premiering it here in New York. We have a motherhood tour. We are going to be everywhere in every city, doing screenings. And, it kind of like the story kind of walks you through the history, right? Of the culture wars, in particular, focusing on the culture war of stay-at-home mom versus working mom, which is now trad wife versus girl boss. Like, how did that start? Started in the 1970s, you know what I mean, with Phil Schlafly, right, and Betty Friedan, which were the two kind of OG kind of women on polar opposites. And like, what's the consequences of that? It has some real stories of moms, and then like a win that we had on childcare and what the world could look like actually if we came together. Like, and it's possible for us to.
And so why don't we go back to why you decided to make this movie? And why, I mean, you have this nonprofit, Moms First. You've been lobbying for change, but why does it make sense to make a movie? And then what does it mean to have 2,500 producers?
Yeah. And here's the thing, the hardest thing I ever did. I was like, I don't recommend anyone to be like, you know what I mean, a documentary film producer, like in a moment where, quite frankly, like the business is really hard, right? And I wanted to make it because as I went out there talking about this issue 4 years ago, I would look into audiences and women would look at me or moms would look at me kind of like I was crazy. Like, wait a minute, I could have that? Like, we had convinced moms for so long that, like, this is your fault. You're doing something wrong. You just didn't wake up early enough, or you didn't color code your calendar, or you picked the wrong guy or the wrong, the wrong job. And to show women, no, it's not you. It's actually the system. It's our government. It's the economy. It's the way things have been designed, you know, and that you can also fix that. That's not unicorns and rainbows. That is Norway or Canada or South Korea. Like when I was able to make that connection, this light went off. And you know this, like there is nothing more powerful than like a pissed off mom. And so to me, I'm like, if I can create a piece of content that can walk people through this, both moms and allies and young women who are choosing not to have kids, if we can show people, right, that that you have been tricked, that this is a culture war, that things can look different, and that how that happens is by us coming together. I think that's how you ignite the movement to pass childcare and paid leave. And I think especially on childcare, we are so close that I can smell it.
So your ultimate goal is to pass childcare and paid leave. And
Yeah.
you say that there's nothing more powerful than a pissed off mom. I would also say there's nothing more powerful than women helping women.
That's right.
And what I've seen as a working mom that some of my biggest allies are the moms who are not working right now.
Yep.
And when they reach out to help me because I'm traveling for the day and it's easy for them to give me a hand, and they admire what I'm doing and they know someday they'll be back in the workforce. To me, that collaboration is something that I think is really valuable
100%.
and sometimes is overlooked by the narrative.
I'm just like you, like my PS11 group chat, like the moms, right? Who are like, Reshma, did you pack the swimsuit today? Or I mean, graduations, because they know, right? They know that like, and they have so much pride in being able to help me. And I wouldn't have made it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would not have made it this far without them. And that's it. That's the right. So you asked me like, what's your goal? Yes, it's policy, but you know what else it is? Sisterhood, community, coming together, not judging each other. I don't want the stay-at-home moms in my life to feel embarrassed because they think they're not contributing to society. I want to have maybe we should be paying them. Like, let's have that conversation. You know what I mean? So like, I want people to see that. And in many ways, the divide isn't even red and blue. It is about choices. And one of the biggest fake divides right now are between women who work and women who are at home. And there's a lot of judgment there. And that was the thing that really surprised me is as I went on the road, that's all people really, they were so lonely because they felt so judged.
So who's the audience for this film? And tell me about these 2,500 producers, what their
Yeah.
role is.
So, I mean, the audience is, I think, moms and allies. And I think I also want people who just didn't think about American motherhood this way. You know, who are going to watch the film and be like, and feel like you learned something that like if you weren't part of the movement for childcare and paid leave, now you are. Like you realize that it's important. And there's something here. These 2,500 moms are just regular old moms. So like
So they're not paying to support the film.
well, you could make a donation if you want, or you could share a story that you have. I mean, we have hundreds and hundreds, oh my God, Julie, of these stories, which are like everyday stories. Like somehow, like, we think like the thing that prevented us from getting to drop off on time. Or like the fight that I had with my 6-year-old this morning where I made him cry. Now I've thought all day long about how I'm a bad mom, you know what I mean? Because he wasn't eating his cereal fast enough and I needed to get somewhere, right? So like this everyday moment where you feel like you're just failing and like the toll that it takes on your heart, like these are real stories. They're ordinary stories and they're meaningful and they're important. And so many women shared them. Or quite frankly, women like my friend Alana, who won an Olympic medal for bobsledding, and how she came to that because both of her sons are deaf, and about how she's been speaking to moms all across the country and like what she wants to do with children who, have special needs. Like, so again, it's just women it's like so many moms who just want to feel seen and feel like they're not alone. And those are the 2,500 moms. Like this
Amazing.
is their
And
movie.
so it's a little bit of a petition in a way. It's like signing on to a petition.
Yeah, it's also just feeling ownership over this story and feeling like it is a story. It's a story that's worthy of being on the big screen. It's a story that's worthy of like applying for the Oscars, right? It is your story and your story matters. It's not ordinary. It's not silly. It's not just something that you should deal with. It is a meaningful, important story and one that needs to be solved for.
I remember talking with a female CEO about how we had both been made to cry by a preschool teacher about missing drop-offs at preschool. I'll never forget it when that's like the kind of thing that you bring with you because you feel so guilty.
Oh my God.
And yeah, as you said, nobody wants to feel like a bad mom. So talk to us about your prescription for change. Specifically, what are you advocating for? What is your Mom's First organization and how does it all work?
Yeah, so listen, I think the reason why we feel so stretched is that we just don't have structural support. Like so many women, as you know, Julia, like 500,000 women left the workforce. They were mostly all women who had children under the age of 5 because they could not find or afford childcare.
Over
right?
what time period?
I mean, about dropping off the workforce. I mean, over the past year, right? Because the job numbers come.
Oh, you said so. The 500,000 is just over the past year.
and the last right. And so, if you look at why are women leaving, women are leaving the workforce because they can't find or afford childcare. And so if you think about like, so to me, the biggest things that the biggest lever that you could move to change mothers' like sense of like, again, both mental health, you know what I mean, and financial health is having affordable, available childcare. And so that's the biggest policy level that I think that we are close to moving. The reason why we have not been able to do it is because of this. We're just too divided. Like our you know what I mean, our like tent is not big enough to move politicians from it being number 13 on the list to it being number 1. And so one of the biggest policy things that we want to do from this film is to really drive that. So afterwards, we want to have a petition to every single governor, right, in the state, because I think this president has pretty much made it clear that like it's not something that he's going to prioritize because he's spending our resources elsewhere. But that's a policy move that we really want to change. We want to make people childcare voters, right, and increase the movement of people who are going to be fighting for that.
So explain to us a little bit about where your organization Moms First came from. At first, it was called Marshall Plan for Moms.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So I was, as you know, spent a decade of my life building an organization called Girls Who Code. Had my second baby during the pandemic, and I had to go back to work 2 weeks after Sai was born because every place where we taught girls to code was being shut down. And it was like there's something, Julia, I think, of having a baby during the pandemic that was just evangelizing. You just saw it in a way I hadn't seen it before. That like, oh, I'm not doing a bad job. Like I am living in a country that sets mothers up to fail. And like that needs to change.
and why was it that having the baby during the pandemic made you see that?
Because daycare centers were shut down and schools were closed and your grandmother or your babysitter couldn't come in and help you. And you suddenly found yourself having to actually work so you could put food on the table and caregive. And you realize that like people who thought Zoom school was a good idea didn't even think about us. That there's this expectation that mothers are our country's social safety net, and that we will just do it, and that you're like, oh wait, something's broken here. And so I wrote an op-ed and then and then a New York Times ad that went viral, and I realized that like, wait a minute, why don't we have paid leave?
And
Why don't we
tell
have
us what your op-ed said, because I
I mean,
remember reading
my
it.
op-ed was like, we need a Marshall Plan for moms. Like, we need a countrywide plan that would fix American motherhood. It's very similar to the things we're doing today. We need paid leave. We need childcare. We need flexibility. Like, we need we need men to do more care work, right? We need to fix the system. This is a broken system. And again, it is distinctly American. It is not like this anywhere else.
Although the
And
pandemic, there were some things that you're advocating for that you still couldn't have done during the pandemic, right? Like childcare, paid childcare. You couldn't have taken your kids anywhere in those early days of the
Right, but I think
pandemic.
you realize that, like, we depend on schools, and we did depend on childcare and daycare, right? And also, like, I think what's actually it's quite the reverse in some ways, Julia, right? During the pandemic, people gave mothers more grace. They were like,
That's
"Oh, you
true.
have a child? Okay, like, not gonna fire you, or it's okay if, like, you need to pull off 3 to 4 to do something." But then the minute that the pandemic was over, everyone went back to the way that it was, and that was really shocking to me. It's kinda like what happened in this country during World War II. There was a period of time where we had universal childcare. When the men went to war, we needed women to work. We're like, the Lanham Act. We're like, "Oh my god, what are we gonna do about all these moms who have babies?" "Oh, we'll build daycare centers, and we'll charge them $10 $1 a day. We'll make it free and affordable." When the war ended, we shut those centers down. So we know what we need to do. We just choose not to do it. And
So
yeah,
in the pandemic, you have this aha moment. You're home with a baby,
yeah,
and you launch this Marshall Plan for Moms, and then that evolved into Moms First.
yeah,
Explain what this organization is. It's a lobbying organization. It's a
yeah.
policy organization.
It is a national movement to make American mother tenable by advocating for paid leave and childcare. And so the thing I learned in building Girls Who Code, because similarly there we're trying to close the gender gap in tech. How do you do that, right? How do you actually take a structural issue and make it happen? And the thing that I learned is the first thing is cultural change. So the biggest thing about motherhood is we don't respect American motherhood. We don't value it, right? So how do you actually change the culture? That's what this film is about. That's what a lot of the content that we do is about making people understand that structurally American motherhood is set up to make mothers fail. Why? How do we change it? The second piece of it is really, again,
Is it to make them fail or to make them feel like they're failing?
no, I think we fail. I think that
Y
I think we act, I mean, I think we fail by not having to drop out of the workforce. I meet mothers all the time that went to nursing school, that are Uber driving because they have to find a way to put food on the table. And we forget that like almost 26% of moms are single moms. We should be building a system, quite frankly, that makes it tenable for them. So I do think we set mothers up to, quite frankly, fail. We pay them less. We have a motherhood penalty, right? Where when you become a mom,
Not just the pay gap, but yeah, the motherhood
yeah. So
penalty.
yeah, we actually set them up to fail, not even to feel like you're failing. We do feel like we're failing, but then we actually, for a lot of us, we like actually do fail. You know what I mean? And it's brutal. The second thing though, for like, and so it's an advocacy organization, and so to me, it was like, well, how do you pass childcare? And the biggest thing I learned, Julia, was that 4 years ago is that we were talking about childcare like it was a personal problem and not an economic issue. And so Moms First did a series of reports, you know what I mean, that did the data analysis and the ROI of companies investing in childcare, of the government investing in childcare and in frontline workers most recently. And then we did a relentless communications campaign about how do we switch the American public into thinking about this as an economic issue. And it worked. We now talk about childcare as an affordability issue. We have a mayor in New York who doesn't even have children. You know what I mean? Who ran on childcare as it being central to keeping New Yorkers in the city. And so, like, not rent, you know what I mean? Childcare. And so that is like a campaign that we have been running for the past 4 years that I think we finally have like broken through.
And what's the next step now, other than your movie coming out?
Well, the next step now is, listen, I still think we are fighting for federal paid leave. I mean, federal childcare, like having basically a certain amount of money that parents pay and not more. But I think we've gotten signals from this administration that there's not really appetite for that. And so it has to happen in the states.
Yeah.
We've passed it in Kentucky, in New Mexico and Vermont and now New York. We were very instrumental in making this happen here in New York, which you'll see in the film. But now we're talking to a handful of other governors, right? We're doing work in New Jersey, Virginia, right? Kentucky. We're talking to Governor Pritzker, in Illinois about like, well, how do we actually even have more childcare investment in other states? You know what I mean? While we're building the movement on federally. But then, my other dream is like, I want us to pass paid leave in America. And what would that look like? How do we do that? And I think that too, we need a relentless communication campaign, because I still think like we're really stuck in that. I see babies being strolled down the streets here in New York City that are 12 weeks old. You know what I mean? By babies, by women who are not their mothers. And we think that that's normal. And when I have family visiting from India and other places, they look at that and like, this is unconscionable. And it is unconscionable, right? And so we have to change our value system around this and change our perception that we think that this is normal and okay.
Yeah. There's so many pieces of this. I think it's important to explain why you started Girls Who Code, because for your last chapter of your career was also focused
Yeah.
on helping girls and women. What made you decide to launch Girls Who Code? Because your original, the start of your career was
Yeah.
in very male-dominated industries.
It was. I mean, and I started Girls Who Code because I wanted to close the gender gap in computer science and tech, because I wanted to help girls be able to march up into the middle class. These were computer science
But
jobs.
what inspired that?
Being the daughter of refugees. I had a dad who would tell me every day, you should be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer, right? And so when I saw all these tech jobs and women not going into them, I'm like, hey, those are like, you can make $125,000 a year. And so to me, financial security was my first impetus. But then I was like, wait, you can also solve big problems. Girls want, like, if you are around a young girl, she'll probably tell you about what she wants to change in the world. That maybe her brother is dyslexic, or, her mother has cancer, or, too many people in her neighborhood, are not throwing the trash out, right? And we have an environmental crisis. My point is, like, girls are like change makers. And I believe, and I still believe that like help technology can help make the world a better place. And so that was really the inspiration for me. But then here's the thing, Julia, I saw in the pandemic that a lot of my girls that were on their way to college to major in computer science had to drop out because their mothers were essential workers and they needed to be at hospitals and they needed to be, out, in schools and their siblings needed looking after. And so instead of going to college, they had to stay home and take care of their family. And so to me, this was like a whoa, like I could teach millions of girls to code, but if we haven't closed, the opportunity gap, the structural gap in care, we're not fixing anything in terms of women's equality and opportunity in America.
You started off focused on this question of girls in tech with girls who code, but now there's a whole nother question when it comes to women and AI,
Oh, yes.
because the gender gaps that exist, whether it's in pay or in promotion, have a risk of getting much worse because of AI. Right now, there's also a gender gap in AI, and we've heard both anecdotally from CEOs that their
Yeah.
female employees are adopting AI less, but also the data shows from CNBC studies and plenty of other studies that women are not engaging with AI at the same level as men. And one
Hmm.
thing I thought was really interesting is the research showing that women feel like it's sort of cheating
Yeah.
to explore
And
AI,
we and
which
we're rule followers.
yeah, and so that could end up really holding women
Mhm.
back. How much do you think women are in a vulnerable position because of the risk AI poses to jobs and in general?
I mean, listen, I think that some data shows that like the jobs that are not going to be automated are the ones that women are in. So one could argue that like AI might be actually good for women's opportunity in terms of like the humans that are going to be left around, doing work. But the where I really want to focus is like I think that like even if we close the usage gap in AI, I want to close the power gap because there is a power gap in AI. If you look at the researchers, if you look at the founders, if you look at the creators, they're all men solving problems that men think about. And I think more today, more than ever before, if you think about risk management, if you think about the proliferation of pornography with AI images, like these are things that women see and we need women to actually do something about. And so that's why to me it's so important to continue to make sure that we close the power gap of women in AI, which means that we have to close the access gap. Here's the thing, 44% of low-income Americans still don't have access to broadband. When I would go to my Girls Who Code clubs in Title I schools, oftentimes the club couldn't even function because the Wi-Fi would go in and out because we didn't actually lay broadband in those communities till the very end. And the thing about AI is it's here and it is absolutely going to wreak havoc on humanity. But here's the thing. I want to make sure that young women and people of color and poor people are going to be are going to be making sure that it doesn't, right? And that means that like we have to close the access. Every Title I school, you should be kids should be able to be having free AI licenses. I go to private schools, they're all making AI agents, like 10 of them, right? And so this is where like I wouldn't have even have needed to build Girls Who Code if we didn't have a gender gap, in access back then. And we're gonna do the same thing in AI.
But now AI is also part of the gender culture wars. I saw Reese Witherspoon was talking about wanting to learn about AI herself and help educate other women about
Mel
AI.
Robbins, right? Yep.
And I saw her say that, and I was like, "That's great." And then the next day, I was so surprised to see all this backlash to
Mhm.
that. What do you make of that kind of backlash?
Well, 50% of young people are really skeptical of AI. Like I could not have started Girls Who AI today and had the same responses I had with Girls Who Code. 10 years ago. It's a different climate. And you know what? That's the fault of the tech bros. Like the entire marketing of AI has been like, hey, 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 don't you worry. We're going to make billions of dollars off of this. And, we're just going to have basic income for everybody else. And I call bullshit on that, right? There's no way that like capitalism is going to bring us AI and AI is going to bring us socialism. Like just not, right, Julia? Like think about that. It's just like not going to happen. And so I think young people are like, yeah, not bullshit. So that is why I think Reese, who was trying to say, have a nuanced conversation, like quite frankly, we're having, I think gotten some hot water about it because I think that like you have to acknowledge the amount of understandable distrust to about AI because of who's building it And because of the fact that they don't care about the average American, and they're not
But
speaking to
her
the average American.
argument for people to have AI literacy and familiarity seems like it's so universally valuable. It seems so non-controversial to me to say AI is here. I want to figure it out. I want to bring you on this journey with me. That I felt like
No,
the
I understand.
backlash.
Because I think people wanted a yes and. I think people wanted a yes, you got to learn it, and we have to protect the risks. I think people wanted a yes and. I wonder if she had a yes and, whether it would have had the same effect.
So how do you use AI?
I
What
mean,
is your AI strategy, both for the organization and for yourself?
yeah, I mean, listen, I use AI every single day. I use Claude and ChatGPT every single day to both design things, for my personal, like, hey, I'm thinking about going on vacation. Should I go here or there? You know what I mean? I use it to actually kind of think about some of the research topics that I'm thinking about and like, what are the things I'm not thinking about? I mean, I use it as a tool, right? But I don't use it as my first draft. Like if I'm like working on a speech and I have a commencement speech on Friday, I don't start there, right? I use it, and sometimes when I'm stuck or when I'm trying to get quick information about something. Um,
How are you setting yourself up for success in the future when it comes to all of these tech tools?
well,
Like,
I
how do you
want to.
make sure you are up on the latest?
Oh, I want to learn everything. Every Friday, 1 to 2, we call in an expert who teaches my team a new trick, a new tool, a new program. I think everyone should do that, and I think it starts, quite frankly, with at the top, right? Like, I want to learn what's out there. You know what I mean? And how I can use, how I can make better videos and content, how I can reach audiences, how I can think, more smartly about certain things, and quite frankly, how I can actually mitigate the risk. The other thing, Julia, like, 4 years ago, we built a tool called Paid Leave AI. I called up Sam Altman and I said, you know what? Like, I think generative AI can actually be a great tool for benefits enhancement. There's a lot of people out there, quite frankly, who are not getting their paid leave benefits because when they go to the government website, it's too damn confusing. And this feels like a really good use case for generative AI. And so we partnered with OpenAI and built one of the first kind of AI for good tools out there. Now over 188,000 people have used it across, the country. And we kind of opened ourselves up to other nonprofits and said, hey, let us tell you all the things that we learned, on this journey of building, this AI tool so you don't make the same mistakes that we've made. And we've helped countless other organizations build their chatbots or build their AIs to help, survivors of sexual violence or to help domestic care workers or, to help climate activists, like all in every single field.
It's so interesting because you have approached all of your problem solving from this idea that you can be an agent of change. And that's really what Changemakers is about, this idea of driving change in your specific organization and beyond. And I'm wondering if you could give us some insights into how you think about driving change. I mean, even hearing about the way you want to embrace AI, you want to make AI a force for good. Do you have a recipe for tackling these tough situations, really complex, culturally nuanced situations in a way to actually make them change for
You
good?
know, look, I mean, I think the thing is like for me, I'm always motivated by like what is moving me, like what's something that's keeping me up at night, and then what are my gifts. So like my
I call them
God.
superpowers.
Yeah, so, like, I'm a religious person, like, my God-given gift is my ability to communicate, like, I think that's for me, like, I'm able to take something that's complex and figure out how to, like, talk about it in a way that people go, "Oh, I get it," and I'll mull over it. You know what I mean? Like, even in terms of, like, ho and it's taken me 3 years to figure out how to talk about childcare as an economic issue and to not have people look at me like I'm crazy, right? And to, like, workshop it in my head. So I think that's it. You have to figure out what's the problem that you like are losing sleep over and that you're like really intellectually excited about, right? And then what's your superpower, right? What's your gift? What's the way that you can actually tackle that particular problem? Um, and then move forward.
You wrote a book, which came out right as the pandemic
Mhm.
started, called Brave, Not Perfect. What is your practical advice to our listeners from that book and what you've learned since then? Because
Oh my
that came
God.
out 6 years ago now.
Yes, I am giving a big speech about listen, I think we have a bravery deficit right now. I think that we need bravery and courage today more than ever before. And I think people just don't know how to be brave because we have sold bravery. Like, bravery doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible. It doesn't feel like you just won a marathon race and people are throwing rose petals at you. It actually feels really shitty and isolating. It feels like rejection. And that's why today, we need women to stand up when their company's closing down their ERG group, right? Or that we're yet again, you know what I mean? Young girls feel like they can't raise their hand anymore because they're told to be quiet because that's the culture that we're living in today. When we need people or we need engineers, you know what I mean, who to speak up with because the tool that they're building is actually going to make us more divided. And they know intuitively in their gut that that's not a good thing. They don't know how to do it because we haven't taught them. We haven't taught them how to sit in that discomfort, how to sit in that rejection. So to me, like, and if we don't have more people being courageous, we're screwed.
Yeah, the comfortable being uncomfortable. I think the best leaders, I think all true leaders are okay being uncomfortable. And this idea that being brave means you have to be uncomfortable
Yeah.
is really
But think
powerful.
about everything, even today, like, you don't go to the grocery store anymore. You just order it to your desk. You don't have to like leave your home anymore to even like go on a date because you can, you know what I mean? People do not know how to feel uncomfortable anymore because we've made everything so damn convenient
Yeah.
and so generic. And so, like, I just don't think we fully understand how much we have lost people's bravery muscle.
So before I let you go and go about your day and your other interviews, I always like to ask about life hacks. But you know what? First, I'm going to ask about something else. You said you feel very hopeful. You talked about all the reasons why things haven't changed, but why are you hopeful now?
Because I think that, like, I'm hopeful because I think people are really pissed off and done. I think that people are very also like they see what's going on. And I think that, like, people don't want to continue to feel like they're having to watch their humanity be erased. And so I think I do feel like the change is coming. It's like, listen, I felt like I saw it in the middle class moms, that are middle aged moms in Minnesota that were being like, no, you can't take my neighbor, and that were out there every single day. So I think you see like almost unexpected pockets of courage and bravery in places you wouldn't think.
And
And
how
so,
do you stay brave and optimistic in the face of so many challenges and those hard days?
I mean, it's not easy. I definitely feel like the past 2 years have really challenged me. I was talking to my spiritual coach about this because I was like, I'm so tired. And he's like, Reshma, you're always fighting. Of course you're going to be tired. And I was like, yeah, like, but like, I think that I always say, like, would you rather be dead or tired? And I'd rather be tired than dead. So it is what it
So
is, like, I think it's like, I don't tell people anymore, like, it is what it is. Like, especially when it comes to women's rights, we are in the fight of our lives. And it is like my obligation in this lifetime to try as much as I can to make sure that I don't die with less rights than I was born with.
yeah. Last question. We like to ask about the life hacks, the systems, the support systems, the tools, the tricks that our power players and change makers lean into to help them get through each day and week. You mentioned you have a spiritual coach. Are there other things
Yeah.
you have or do to help you manage your life?
Yeah, I mean, two things. So I recently did Hoffman, and I recommend it to everybody because I think it's like, especially at a certain age in your life, you're holding a lot of your patterns and things that kind of bog you down. And I think you need moments to like reset. And so that was for me. And the second thing, I have a weighted sleep mask that has like
The
changed.
Nod Pod? Is it the because
Yes.
I have a
Yes.
Nod Pod weighted sleep mask and I'm
Oh,
obsessed with it.
I'm obsessed with it.
Yeah.
Everybody must buy this like tomorrow. And it has just changed my sleep game.
Yeah. For those of you who aren't familiar, it's a weighted sleep mask. It's not too heavy. It's like having
No.
little bean bags on your eyes.
And you can, like, sleep on the side and, like,
Yeah.
it moves around with you.
Yeah.
It's perfect. My dog
Oh
has it
my
in
God.
it. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. Do you have a weighted blanket also?
I do, but I get hot with the,
So
with
the
perimenopause.
non-pod makes one that's a little one, that's just like a
Oh,
little.
really?
Yes,
Okay,
there's a
I gotta
little
get
one.
that.
I'm a big believer in weighted blankets. Sleep is important.
Sleep is key. Sleep is key.
Well, we will leave it there. Reshma, good luck with the movie and congratulations.
Thank you.
And I'm sure many other women will find themselves moved as I was, and I look forward to seeing the rest of it. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you, Julia.